name.
That's okay. I'm not really sure what we should call him either. Is it Skylar? Is it Savage?
You can call me either. Yeah. My name's Skylar Bennett. Lots of people like to call me Savage. Yeah, I was the guy.
You were the guy that got arrested after you received a ticket for the claim of picketing. So, I mean, just to bring our listeners up to speed in case they haven't seen any of the video, and there's a bunch of video that came out of this, which is that's a good problem to have, right? Where you got a lot of activists with a lot of video cameras. I had Vincent, a former co-host of ours, do some editing, and he grabbed some of your footage, Skylar, and I don't know, 2 or 3 other people, and cobbled together a 20-minute long video to kind of give people an overview of this. You can see that over at the Free Keen YouTube channel if you haven't seen this. But basically, you guys rolled up at the governor's house at like 7 o'clock or something like that on Monday evening, and there were, at least a dozen to 20 state troopers that were already waiting for you there?
Yeah, so first, like, anything that I say can be backed up. So I have a YouTube page, it's Savage Truth 603, and I put the unedited footage of the entire event, start to finish, from the moment we showed up till I got arrested, up there for everybody to see, because there's nothing there for me to hide. But I definitely feel like the town and state police have some things to answer for.
Oh, yeah. Now, before we go on, I just do want to remind you, you are on actual broadcast radio tonight,
yes.
So keep it FCC friendly. I realize things can get heated when you think about, what the cops have done and, you know, the terrible things.
So I've had my kids, like, yelling at me for the past, like, 2 hours about my language. So I'm not gonna lie, if I speak slowly or if there's like weird pauses, it's because I'm trying desperately to censor myself.
I appreciate it.
All right.
So let's, before we get into all of the what went on Monday night, let's go back a little further. What was it that inspired you to go to this event in the first place? Because I've been to a few of these protests at the governor's house. I wasn't at the one that you were, the candlelight vigil. I was here, doing work or whatever. But I've been to at least 3 of them prior to that, and I hadn't seen you there. So what was it that brought you out this time?
So I guess just to give a very brief background of why the protests are happening, and like, I don't want to speak for the organizers of the group, but
sure,
we're all under the same understanding, I think, for the most part. There's been several violations to the Constitution. The governor has been conducting secret meetings at the National Guard facility in Pembroke with the AG and certain other members of the legislature, and denying access to the public. So they've removed all forms of redress that we have by way of the Constitution. We can't. It doesn't make sense for us to picket or demonstrate outside the State House when the State House is closed and the governor is working from his big white house on the hill.
Right.
So that was what started the demonstrations at his house.
Actually, it was the mask mandate that really triggered, because there was a lot of talk this year. There were, as you may know, there were the Reopen New Hampshire protests that happened at the State House back in like April and May. And, earlier around that time, and then throughout the summer, there was some discussion about, well, why don't we go to the governor's house? And some people said, oh, we don't want to go there yet, or, his family, etc. And it never ended up really, materializing until finally he came out with this mask mandate. Of course, just a couple weeks after he said he wasn't going to do a mask mandate.
Yeah.
Typical politician.
And he comes out with this mask mandate. And now, even though there are a bunch of exemptions, most people don't realize that. They don't ever read these things.
Right.
So they just go with what they hear on the media. And so they believe that there's this ironclad mask mandate. And there might as well be, as far as what people believe. So that's what sparked the protests. And then, of course, things just keep getting worse with him passing another governor's emergency order that, as I understand it, completely removed religious exemptions from receiving vaccines, which, as though it were sort of paving the way for forced vaccinations, even though they didn't actually say they were going to force vaccinate yet. They seem to be preparing for that. So
I'm not a legal expert, but my reading of it suggested that it only applied to healthcare workers.
Okay.
That's where it's going to start, and it'll
Sure.
be, then they're going to say you can't put your kids in school without having them vaccinated, and then they're going to say you can't. If you can't, I mean, they've already talked about not letting you have a passport. Then you won't be able to fly at all. Then you won't be able to use mass transportation. And then once they push us into a digital currency, they'll shut your bank accounts off if you don't do what they say.
Oh, they've been shutting our bank accounts down for years.
I just went off on a little bit of a the deep end a little bit there, but this is stuff that I have been paying very close attention to for over a year, and I said that I've been calling all this stuff. It's crazy, where things are going and how fast they're getting there.
We've seen China doing it with their social credit system, and now they have a digital currency, and they can, if your social credit is too low, they can just completely cut you out of the financial system.
Yes. So I posted a video on my YouTube channel a year ago, and it was one of the first videos I ever posted, and I just kind of edited some stuff together with this free soundtrack that I got off SoundCloud, and it shows all of the cameras everywhere and how they log people's faces everywhere they go, and they go to stores and they're paying with their faces, and the kids in school, they're analyzing their faces when they're doing schoolwork, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah. It's creepy.
Yeah.
There are cameras everywhere. It's even worse in the United Kingdom, but here it's bad.
Yeah.
Here, at least, a lot of them are supposedly private security cameras. So you go to a gas station or something, you just sort of expect to be on camera.
Sure.
But in the United Kingdom, I think they're all state-owned, aren't they?
Well, there's a lot of CCTV cameras that are run by the government,
And that's horrifying.
Yeah, that much is true.
Yep.
And that's been the case for many years. I mean, that was more than probably a decade ago that they started installing those. So,
So Savage, I've been curious since I first heard, what exactly trumped-up crap did they arrest you for?
Well, all right. So I guess I should go back to the beginning, because we started at the beginning and then we jumped around a little bit. So let me get right to the meat and potatoes of it. So the reason I went there, this is actually the first demonstration that I attended there, and it was a candlelight vigil for the people, the victims of the lockdowns, the suicides, the domestic abuse victims, the people that have lost their businesses, the people that, there's a lot to this whole thing. So that was what the candlelight vigil was supposed to be for. As soon as we pulled up, they
decided they were going to victimize some more of you. Hang on, stick with us. You got time, right?
Okay, I got all the time in the world, brother.
All right, cool. More with Skylar Savage Bennett. He is Savage Truth 603 on YouTube. We'll continue.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear the rest of the story and how aggressive the police just became for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We're going to get further into it. This is Free Talk Live.
Look, I'm sorry, but you're in for a world of pain if you use Koinomi. The reason is their wallet doesn't support payments. The solution is simple. Let them hear your voice. Message Koinomi on Twitter, it takes 5 seconds, and tell them AnyPay sent you, because they're on the fence right now, and your voice will prove that people care about using Bitcoin for payments. Go tweet at Koinomi now. Or even better, leave a review in the App Store. They really pay attention there. Thanks.
What if the United States and the Soviet Union had fought on land, sea, air, and the astral plane, struggled for dominion across parallel dimensions, or on the surface of the moon? What wonders would have been unveiled? What terrors would have haunted mankind from those dark and dismal dimensions? Come closer, peer through a glass darkly, and discover the horrifying alternative visions of World War III from some of today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War III. Available now from Bain Books at bainbooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Divi's been a pretty good investment for Free Talk Live. Their ad campaign started in September 2019, and from mid-March to mid-July, the values soared by 10 times. It's not too late. Divi's new wallet hasn't even released yet, and other things are happening that I can't even say on the radio. If you want to invest and potentially do well, go to diviproject.org. I can tell you that FTL is deepening its partnership with the guys from diviproject.org. Past performance is not an indication of future profit. diviproject.org. DIVI project.org.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, excuse me. Hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today. You ain't gonna make it. Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Live video of our key New Hampshire-based shows is streamed on DLive. Please follow and share at dlive.lrn.fm. That's dlive.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. And normally you can just call in and talk about whatever's on your mind, but not for the time being, so I'm going to hold off on automatically giving out the number like I was about to do. I also want to tell you that Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. And if you haven't done it yet, there really isn't a better time. Sure, Bitcoin looks relatively expensive right now at $35,000, but don't be sitting there 2 years from now saying that you wish you had bought Bitcoin back when it was only $35,000.
Right.
If you've been saying that repeatedly, you'll be saying it again in 2 years unless you act. And you can go to bitcoin.com, click on Get Started at the top of the page. And once you do that, there's all sorts of information there, neatly organized by your needs. So don't just go in and buy Bitcoin from some random person on local Bitcoins. Do your research first, learn about it, because it is world-changing information and it can be intimidating for new users. But if you aren't a new user, check out news.bitcoin.com for the latest headlines of all the news that's relevant to you, because bitcoin.com is your source for buying cryptocurrency, getting a wallet, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news, all on an awesome, easy-to-use website. Check it out, bitcoin.com.
I mean, we can't make predictions about what the price is going to do in the future, but based on the past, it sure does look like it might go up some more.
I don't want to make a prediction.
Nope.
But
it could go down.
The trajectory of Bitcoin has pretty much largely been one direction since it was created.
Over time, yeah.
Can I make a painful confession about Bitcoin? Sure. So the first time I heard about Bitcoin, do you know how much it was to buy a Bitcoin?
$30.
$12.
Oof.
$12.
The first Bitcoin I ever purchased was $500 per Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Thanks, I'm dumb.
Well, you know, it's easy to look at something that's new and just be like, "Oh, what's that? I'm too busy. I don't have time."
I mean, we can talk currencies on a whole nother thing, because that's I have my own opinions about currencies in general. So
sure. By the way, for our listeners just tuning in, we've got a special guest here with us, Skylar Bennett, a.k.a. Savage. He hosts a YouTube channel called Savage Truth 603. And we were just getting into what happened to you last week. We actually had one of the other guys that was there with you, Bill Domenico, one of the older gentlemen that was present. He was just outraged at what was going on with these a phalanx of state troopers that was on the scene at the governor's house in Newfields, New Hampshire, for what was a candlelight vigil. I mean, it's one of the least offensive things that a group of people can do in sort of a protest, right? Like, there's chanting. That's pretty offensive. You know, it's loud, it's obnoxious or whatever. But candlelight vigils are peaceful. They're quiet. They're nice. But yet,
I don't know that chanting is any worse than a candlelight vigil.
Chanting's noisy, right? Like, chanting is harsh. It can be angry. Candlelight vigils are always, very, caring sorts of events. But yet they decided they were going to target this event with their new, their precious new ordinance that the town had written. Just a week before, days beforehand.
Yeah.
They had finished this ordinance to ban so-called picketing, which of course on its own is constitutionally suspect and probably highly, violative of the Constitution. But even if you were to say, picketing bad, to call candlelight vigiling a picketing event is pretty ridiculous. I mean, these cops were ridiculous from top to bottom. As you learned, you were just telling us what happened when you arrived on the scene in the beginning of this thing.
So, so we showed up, and we were immediately greeted by 5 or 6 state troopers on foot. There was, I believe, 4 or 5 state trooper cars in Sununu's driveway. And then, of course, King Sununu, he lives on this giant cul-de-sac, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And his house is up on a hill, probably 200-300 feet from the edge of the road. And then there's the road, and then there's a grass cul-de-sac in the middle that has to be at least a half an acre of grass. It's huge, okay? So where they've normally set up for protests before was in that grass area. Well, we actually wanted to have our vigil on the opposite side of the cul-de-sac. So we're talking 600 feet from the edge of his property, not even from his house.
So you were a pretty good distance from his house his property.
It's not like anybody was blocking his driveway or banging on his windows. It's not. It's just people have just this inflated idea of how aggressive and in his family's face it was. Because
have you seen the little crybaby whining on Twitter?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Sununu?
Well,
he
did a radio show today, and somebody sent it to me, and it's so we can I'm going to continue into this story, and again, you can see it all on my YouTube channel, but there was never a point where anybody was in his backyard by any stretch of the imagination. That is
did he claim that on the radio today?
Patently false. He claimed that, and so here's yes he did. He claimed that and very explicitly made it clear that it was me who was the person in his backyard.
Really?
Yeah, because I was the only one arrested. I was the only armed individual. And
well, now, you may not have been the only armed individual. You were the only one arrested. So.
That's true. Good point. Okay.
This is New Hampshire.
Yes, but nobody was open carrying, and neither was
Gotcha.
I. But because I got arrested, they searched me, and So we pulled up, and they approached us, and immediately we're very you can't be here, you can't do this, and we roll with some well-spoken individuals. It's not really hard for us to push back on just this basic, you can't be here, you can't do this. Well, we have rights, and that's kind of where, we weren't aggressive or
Nope.
trying to fight with the cops at all, but and we kept saying to them, I know you guys are just trying to do your jobs. This isn't an anti-police thing. We're here because we have no other forms of redress with the governor because he's hiding in his house. He's conducting secret meetings with the AG at the National Guard facility and banning the public from these meetings. There's so
I don't even think he's hiding in his house anymore. From what I understand, he hasn't even been present for the past few protests.
Yeah.
He seems to have maybe a second house, or maybe he's at his resort that he owns. I think he owns like a whole ski mountain or something like that. So who knows where he's hiding, but he's not hiding there.
The house was pitch black when we were there. I guarantee there was nobody home. We announced openly that we were going to have our candlelight vigil there, and I'm quite sure that he planned to not be there, but he used plenty of state resources to make sure that the police could bully us. And
it seems insane to me that he had state troopers out there enforcing a local town ordinance.
So
he did.
That's a really interesting point, and I'm going to get to that in later in the story, because it's a really crucial point of the story. So they told us we couldn't quote unquote picket. We pressed them to define what picketing is. And we said, we're here for a candlelight vigil. We're not here to picket. Picketing involves signs, blocking entrances, disrupting things. We weren't there to do that.
Hold that thought. We're going to get further into this rabbit hole. How does holding a candle at a candlelight vigil possibly constitute picketing?
And the town didn't define picketing in the ordinance.
No, of course not, because they're just going to play that whole "we know it when we see it" card. This is Free Talk Live. Stay free out there.
Moose is the German Shepherd, now 11, and he's been an amazing dog. Moose is so active and so alert and hasn't had any kind of health problems at all. He has a beautiful coat, and at 11, he'll still run and chase the ball. He has been on Dynavite since he's a puppy.
Dynavite for life.
Because if they're getting all their vitamins, micronutrients, microbials from the beginning, then you're not going to run into the problems associated with the grass, pollen, dust, dirt, fleas, ticks, you name it, and the itching and shedding down the road. DINOVITE.com. We tell anybody that has a dog, if there was something that you could do right from the beginning so that you don't have expensive veterinary bills, why would you not do it? Get the Dynavite.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
I get my Dynavite from DINOVITE.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up at any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and you call and talk about anything that's on your mind. 603-283-6160 is the call-in line. It's still so hard not to give out the old number, man.
I've been doing all right with it. I've caught myself a couple times, but I've been doing all right with it. By the way, I see our guest there, Skylar Savage Bennett. He's jamming out to the Rebel Inc. there. That's by the way, that's the name of the band, in case you did not know. Rebel Inc.
Sounds
Good
great,
stuff.
man. I'll check it out.
Well, he's wearing a metal shirt.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not surprised.
Metalhead till I die, bro.
Yeah,
Awesome.
well, you could tell by the beard.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, with you tonight is Arya and Ian, and we're joined by Skylar, who is telling us about the the candlelight vigil that occurred the week before last.
Thing is, it didn't even occur. I mean, you guys never even had a chance to get the candles lit, did you?
No, it was an attempt. It was an attempt. So
the cops swooped in immediately.
Yeah.
The cops swooped in immediately, aggressively. The state troopers, by the way, that were there enforcing a local town ordinance. And what happened next?
So, fun fact before I get started, do you guys know whose signature was on the town ordinance to make picketing illegal in Newfields?
Michael Sununu.
Michael Sununu.
And that's his brother, right?
Yes. But the governor said that he had no involvement with that town ordinance.
Of course not.
Okay, so I'm sorry,
Right.
back to my story. So they came up, they told us we couldn't picket. They couldn't define what picketing was after being pressed on it, and they said you can't stand in one spot, you can't target a residence. We couldn't stand across the street, even though it's public property. It belongs to the water department. They said it was private public property, and we went
Ridiculous.
Make things up, man.
I actually confronted them about that the previous protests that happened out there, because that was the first time they put those no trespassing signs up over there, because they hadn't had them there before. If you look at it on a Google map or whatever, it's designated as, it's got that like green park look to it, right? So it looks like it's a park. And, they didn't threaten me when I was walking on the property before, but then all of a sudden one week there's now no trespassing signs up. So I asked one of the cops about it on video, and he gave me the same lame explanation that it's private property. I said, well, wait, how is it private property if it's owned by the town? He says, oh, well, it's the water department.
Yeah.
But it's still
the town.
Public.
Yeah.
Who pays for that?
Exactly.
Taxpayers.
Yeah.
It should always concern
Just a
everyone, and I
sham.
think people out there really need to pay attention to that particular aspect of this. That what we're dealing with here in New Hampshire, where the cops aren't as bad as they are in a lot of other places, they are literally just making crap up as they go in order to tyrannize us.
Well, and that's because there's no penalty for the police.
Right.
So when presumably what's going to happen here, to at the very least the people who were ticketed, as I understand it, was 9 people were ticketed, and then Skylar, you were the only one who ended up getting arrested, and we'll get to that. But I expect they're going to likely drop these tickets because they don't want to take this to court. They don't want to lose these cases in court. So they'll drop the charges, but there's not going to be any kind of penalty for the officers who wrote the charges.
Or for the townspeople who voted for this unconstitutional
or for
crap.
or for the counselors, correct.
Well, I mean, I'm going to do my best to see that some people are held accountable, and there's a lot. I mean, there was a state police trooper that wouldn't identify himself, and literally ran away from me when I tried to get him to identify himself. And of course, they arrested me for exercising my First Amendment right. And when you look at the way that they went through the process, they didn't even go through the town legislature. Michael Sununu just signed this thing into order and made it this like that doesn't that doesn't dictate my rights just because you have a problem with what we have to say or what I have to say.
Right. Well, there's multiple legal issues. I mean, even from within their system, there are multiple issues with what they did legally. As far as New Hampshire is not what they call a home rule state. So in order for a town council or a city council to pass some sort of an ordinance, it has to be approved sort of in advance, or it has to be allowed by the state legislature. So the state legislature, for instance, has said that towns may have zoning. Some towns don't. Other towns do. And that's because they are authorized to either have it or not, depending on what they want to do. But the state has to sort of clear the way for that and allow that to happen. I have never heard that there's any kind of state law that says that local towns can ban picketing.
Correct.
But yet that's what they did here. Now, you said it was just Sununu. I thought that all three of the signatures were on that from the town council. Am I mistaken on that?
Well, I very well could be mistaken because I
think you are.
Okay, so I just remember seeing his for sure, but
oh yeah, that stood out. His signature stood out, but they started the process I think 2 weeks prior to that, and they had what they call a first reading and then a second reading, and they gave people time supposedly to comment on it.
They still rushed this crap out in
they
like
rushed
2
it.
weeks.
Yeah. So when we got there, they said we couldn't direct anything, but that we were allowed to quote unquote march, and we said, okay, like what is a march? And then they couldn't define what a march was. I'm like, how far do I have to go, for this to be considered a march? Like 100 feet, 100 miles? Like, what are we talking about here? And they couldn't give us, kind of at the end of the street. I'm like, well, what if it's the next street over and the street's only 500 feet long? Like, this street's 3 miles. Like, there's a big difference. And they couldn't define it. So we just, we're gonna walk down this way out of sight, and we walked for a few hundred yards.
Except for the one guy that had a cane and was like crippled, and he couldn't really go. They ticketed him too, didn't they?
That was on the way back. So that was after they arrested me.
Okay.
So we walked down through the neighborhood again very quietly. Nobody was making any noise. There's no bullhorns. Like that's a bunch of lies. Mm-hmm. We came back through, and there's a path, a paved sidewalk that goes up next to his house to a general store at the top of the hill. It's like, I don't know, the path itself is maybe 500 feet long. And we were going to go up that path and go to the store, get some water, and then take off. So as we start approaching the cul-de-sac again, again, we're descended on by, a swarm of state troopers and a couple of town cops, and
wasn't this at the point where like another dozen cruisers rolled in? Didn't they more than double their numbers at this point?
Yeah, so we said, hey, we're going to walk up this path, and they were like, okay, fine. And so we started walking up the path, and then again, the guy with the cane was like, yo, can you wait up? And so we stopped for 1 second, and as soon as we turned around, we saw the whole cavalry just rolling in, another at least dozen cop cars. And so then that was when I started trying to identify the police, the state troopers, and most of them, actually, I'm not going to lie, most of the state troopers they weren't terrible. It was this one who wouldn't identify himself. The rest of them, it kind of felt like they were doing a job that they know they shouldn't be doing, but they have to get their paycheck and go home and feed their family like the rest of us. And like, I don't know. So it's weird for me on that.
That was a weak argument when the Nazis used it.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that, but I don't know.
They have discretion, Skylar. So every police officer has discretion, and they can use it. Obviously, the department can punish them for using it, like by putting them on the overnight shift or something like that. But generally, they can't be fired, as I understand it, for using their discretion. And there are only very certain circumstances in which, as I understand it, that they cannot use discretion. So the only cases where they can't use discretion, where they must act, is like if they witness a violent felony taking place or something like if they
I thought
see
they didn't
somebody
have to do anything then because they have no duty to protect.
Well, that's true too. That's true. They don't have any duty to protect. But in theory,
they could get in trouble with the police department itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they immediately
so
they stopped us, and then all of a sudden there's a stack of 15 fully SWAT ready state troopers on the sidewalk, like looking at me, and here I am asking this older state trooper, definitely some sort of commanding officer, to identify himself, and he can be seen on video repeatedly, like running away from me, covering up his name badge, And then he pointed me out to be arrested by this swarm of state troopers, right? So they cuff me, they search me, they surround me, they walk me backwards for like 300 yards, and I'm surrounded by at least a dozen officers.
Yeah, and I want to talk about their attitude too. Like they showed up ready for a fight.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, these guys had batons, and they had them like sort of in this ready fighting defensive kind of stance as they were surrounding him. And we'll continue the story in a moment.
And they had those batons and those stances for a candlelight vigil.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not any sort of protest, not any chanting, not any yelling and screaming, just a candlelight vigil.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Want to accept Bitcoin at your online store? There's a good chance you already have what you need. A WordPress using WooCommerce and a Bitcoin address. Now all you need to start taking Bitcoin payments on your website is the AnyPay app on your Android or iPhone. Just paste your Bitcoin address into AnyPay, then connect it to your website with our one-click plugin for WordPress. Now your website takes Bitcoin, start to finish in 15 minutes or less with no complicated steps. Download AnyPay from the App Store today.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and you call in and talk about anything that's on your mind. It's 603-283-6160. I did that automatically. Got halfway through it without even thinking about it. And I was like, wait a minute, am I giving out the right number? And I turned out to be. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And it's Ian.
And we're joined by Skylar, who was recently the only person arrested at the governor's house, outside of the governor's house, during a candlelight vigil that never actually got to happen. To recap the story, they showed up. There were state troopers everywhere. I think he said up to a dozen of them. And the cops just made up all kinds of crap on the fly. You have to keep moving. You have to march.
You need to do jumping jacks,
Yes.
push-ups.
And so they did. They went up to this store, and then they came back, and there was this old man, borderline crippled, walking with a cane, and in trying to help him, this one state trooper became agitated that you were trying to get his name or something along those lines, and ultimately told the other state troopers, arrest him.
Yep.
Now, what was the charge they dreamed up when they did this?
They told us we could walk up to the store, and we didn't even make it there. They stopped us before we got up there. And then that's when they started harassing everybody. They gave everybody $100 fines. And, the funny part is I can be seen, again, on video saying to the officers, as I was trying to get their information, that I was just waiting for my ride to get ticketed, and then we were going to leave. And it was after that point that they pointed me out to be arrested. I'm not sure why I was the only one that was singled out. I got my ticket ahead of everybody and then was singled out to be arrested for some strange reason.
I would speculate that it was because you were trying to get that state trooper to ID himself, and he didn't want to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think
they are really petty.
Yep.
And they have power to abuse in their pettiness.
Yep. And he was an older one, so I feel like they're a little even more stuck in their bullheaded, you know what I mean? You're not going to tell me what to do kind of shit.
Okay. We're going to have to
sorry. Damn
put him on hold there for just a second. We can keep him on. We just got to
sorry, guys.
do the thing.
Oh.
I think you already dumped it.
Yeah, I forgot that they're connected now. That's the first time I've had to dump anything since then.
I apologize.
All right, don't do that again.
Yes, very sorry.
Welcome back, Skylar.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think
he's distracted with rolling something at the moment.
Yeah. It's true. I'm going to put that down. So they arrested me, or they detained me, they searched me, they're walking me backwards in this huge group. And at this point, I'm talking to these guys I'm not out here for myself. I'm not out here trying to stir up trouble. The reason that we are doing this is the reason that I am doing this is because I care about so many people I know that are in the service industry, bartenders and servers and hairdressers and massage therapists, and there's a million different occupations that have been severely impacted with these lockdowns and stuff. And that's literally what I was telling these guys, that I'm not out here trying to cause trouble. So they walk me back and they stick me in the town cops cruiser, which I immediately was like, that's kind of weird that they detained me and they put me in the town cops cruiser. And it made sense to me almost immediately. And the reason is because, and I said this, so we take off and then we're headed to the station, and the cop that was driving, he's young, he said he was 26. I don't know if he was even that old.
Oh wow!
I was like, and he was the one that gave me the ticket and a bunch of the other people tickets too. So I said,
sold his soul to the devil early.
Yep. I was like, you understand what just happened back there, right? And he didn't say anything. I go, those cops just sold you out. You don't understand why it took 15, 20 of them total, really, to arrest me, and then they took me and put me in your cruiser and told you to file the charges on me. They did that because somebody's going to lose their job.
No, they won't.
Well, I don't know, man. It's all on video, dude.
Yeah, you pretty much have to be a rapist as a cop to lose your job.
And even that won't fully do it.
That's really the only thing that can do it.
I would like to think that somebody is going to lose their job over this. I want it to be the guy that wouldn't identify himself.
That'd be nice, man. But I've seen this too many times. Actually, you just saw Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree, right?
I watched that today. Amazing.
Yeah, none of those guys lost their jobs. I'll tell you that.
That's
Not
true.
one of them.
That's true.
Yep.
We'll see how it plays
That's
out.
depressing, Ian. Thank you.
Yeah, you just broke my heart, man. I was really actually like full steam ahead. I thought I was going to do this thing, and now I'm going to cry myself to sleep.
Hey, I'm not telling you to back down, right? Like,
playing.
please. Yeah. But make as much of a show of it as you can, because ultimately that's all that this is good for.
It's winning hearts and minds.
Is to show the people what's really going on out there. And because you got video, you can do that. It's so much more persuasive when you actually have video rather than saying, well, they said I did this and I said, no, you got video. You can show what happened, and it's crystal clear that you guys weren't a threat. It's crystal clear that you were a peaceful group of people, and these cops are the ones being the aggressors. And that's all you can do, is you can just keep chipping away at the legitimacy of these officers. I got a tough question for you, Skylar. So in the video, at one point, you say to the officers that we're all on the same side, or something to the effect of we're on the same side. What did you mean by that?
So I have said for a while that I think that there's going to be a lot of law enforcement that are going to they're going to end up stepping away from law enforcement and walking away from the state, and they're seeing it. And I think there's a lot of them obviously that are afraid to do it, but when you appeal to somebody as a human being and stop looking at them as like, these guys like literally look at me like I'm a terrorist, all because I showed up to hold a candle. Like, they're so brainwashed, it's not even funny. And like, there's a part of me that feels bad for them and wants to appeal to that side of them and say, hey, like, you're a human like me. This is not about cops. Like, I just feel like it's big. It's much bigger than that. It's about the machine.
That's a good answer, because I like that you're saying the same side was humanity, because somebody could have looked at that. Somebody could have looked at that statement and said, "Wait, is he an undercover cop?"
Gross. No. I was trying to appeal to him as a human. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there are humans. I mean, they are somewhere in there.
Sweaty when you said that.
But they've been so brainwashed by their training of us and them, and we're them.
Yes, that's
and
right.
We'll always
and
be
they
them.
have been trained into this whole thin blue line mentality, where it literally is a training of us versus them, and they try to dehumanize the people that they're going after, and it's really sad. It's really sad, because I don't think those cops got into it to stop candlelight vigilists.
Right. And that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, like, I'm a father. These guys are fathers. Like, what kind of world are you leaving for your kids if they can't go out somewhere and hold a candle? Like, I'm trying to appeal to the more human side of them. A lot of them are just brainwashed, so brainwashed. And it's that thing that's a shame is we are all a slave to money. So even if you're in a career that you absolutely hate, but you have children to feed, a lot of people stay in that career. So I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of people out there that when there's actually a real line in the sand, they're gonna step over to the right line in the sand and realize that the issue is the government and the military complex and the militarization of police, not people who want to stop rapists and murderers. Like, I don't know.
And that's where asking questions can really come in handy when you've got the chance to actually get an answer from these guys, because they may not answer in front of their superiors or whatever, but asking them, would you confiscate guns? So would you force people to vaccinate? Where will you draw the line, officer?
And I guess part of the reason that I feel the way that I do is because I have privileged information that there are a number of police within the state trooper organization that fully support what is happening with the protests but they're just afraid to step up. So
sure, because then the thin blue line will turn against them, which is why it's hard to find any good cops, because if there are any good cops, they are cowering in fear of what the bad cops might do to them. I mean, the bad cops are pretty bad. They may cut a dog's head off and leave it on your front porch or whatever. If you're a good cop, just to try to intimidate you. Or I remember a former co-host here on Free Talk Live, Brad Jardis, years ago was I think it was Epping, New Hampshire. He was a police officer there for more than a decade before he turned against the war on drugs and started speaking out while he was still an officer against the war on drugs. And they started doing things to him. They started doing sort of somewhat intimidating things. Like they never like beat him up or,
sure,
or hurt him, but they would I can't get into all the details about it, but they were definitely like targeting him.
It's a shame. I'm not surprised though. Hey, Skylar, thank you so much for coming on and telling your
Yeah,
your
I want to
story.
keep in touch, Skylar. So let's talk again. I definitely appreciate you coming on, and we'll get updates as this is going on.
Yeah, definitely keep us updated. Fight this thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Don't give them an inch. This is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160.
Bye.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge